Marcus Kane's hands didn't shake when the woman in the tailored Armani suit looked him straight in the eye and said, "You're fired." He'd heard worse. Collection agencies at 2 a.m. A doctor's rehearsed apology in a hospital corridor 3 years ago. This was just another Tuesday night at 3:42 a.m. in a warehouse office that smelled like diesel and broken promises. His daughter Emma stood beside him all 8 years and 47 pounds of her fingers wrapped tight around his work vest. The one with the Sterling Global Solutions patch half peeled at the corner. She didn't look at him. She looked up at the woman, Catherine Sterling, CEO Billionaire, currently pretending she hadn't spent the last 2 weeks operating a forklift under a fake name. "But my daddy didn't do anything wrong." Emma's voice cut through the fluorescent buzz overhead. Small, certain, devastating. Catherine's jaw tightened. Something flickered behind those calculated eyes, something that looked almost like pain. Marcus didn't know if what came next would end everything or change it. If you believe good people still exist in boardrooms and warehouses alike, stay with me. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let me take you into Marcus's world starting 24 hours before everything shattered and rebuilt itself. 24 hours earlier, Marcus had been making French toast in a kitchen, where the wallpaper peeled at the corners and the morning light came through windows that rattled when trucks passed on the street below. 6:47 a.m. Capitol Hill, Denver. The alarm clock on the counter blinked the wrong time because he'd never bothered to reset it after the last power outage. Emma sat at their small table legs, swinging 3 inches off the floor, her science fair notes spread out like a battle plan. "Dad, quiz me. I need to know all the planets in order." Marcus flipped the toast, the smell of cinnamon and vanilla filling the cramped space. "Shoot. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars." Emma's nose scrunched up the way it did when she was thinking hard. Take your breath. You know this. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune." She beamed up at him, gap-toothed and victorious. He kissed the top of her head, breathed in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "Perfect. Just like you'll be tomorrow at the science fair." "I need poster boards still, the big kind." Emma stabbed her French toast with more force than necessary. Miss Rodriguez said presentation matters just as much as facts. Marcus pulled out his wallet. Worn leather held together by hope and duct tape. He counted 3 tens of 5 3-1s and some change. $38.42 until Friday's paycheck. "We'll get it after my shift tonight," he said, pocketing the bills. Emma's fork paused midway to her mouth. "Dad, you work too much. Not as much as I get to be with you." The truth was more complicated than that. 2 jobs, actually. Day shift at the warehouse, freelance bookkeeping at night for 3 small businesses that paid cash under the table. It still barely covered rent, Emma's asthma medication, the basics. But it was enough. It had to be enough. He checked his watch. Cheap Casio, with a cracked face that he'd worn for 3 years because replacing it meant choosing between that and Emma's school field trip fund. "Okay, kiddo. Mrs. Chen's waiting." Emma grabbed her backpack, the one with the fraying straps that she decorated with fabric markers last summer. Marcus made a mental note: new backpack before next school year. Add it to the list. Mrs. Chen answered her door before Marcus could knock. 74 years old, 3 cats, and a heart that could have housed half of Denver. Night shift again. She held the door open, already smiling at Emma. "Last one this week. Then I'm off for Emma's science fair." "You're a good father, Marcus." Mrs. Chen's accent still carried traces of Taiwan, even after 50 years in America. "Not many men would choose what you chose." He didn't know what to say to that. Didn't feel like he'd chosen anything except survival, putting one foot in front of the other until it became something that looked like a life. The warehouse sprawled across 6 acres in Aurora, a Denver suburb where the streets had numbers instead of names, and the buildings all looked the same shade of industrial gray. Sterling Global Solutions Distribution Center. 200,000 square feet of concrete steel, and the dreams of people who needed a paycheck more than they needed pride. Marcus clocked in at 8:15 a.m., pulled on his safety vest, checked the forklift assignments on the board. Zone C again. Loading Bay 3. That's when he saw her, the new hire. Cat Stevens, according to her name tag, though, Marcus had clocked the lie on day 3. She stood by the scheduling board, hair pulled back in a ponytail, generic work clothes that probably cost more than his monthly rent if you knew where to look. Which he did. She was asking questions again, always questions. Why do we route shipments through Kansas City instead of direct to Phoenix? Kat directed this at Mike, the day shift supervisor, a guy who'd worked here 17 years and stopped asking questions around year 2. That's above my pay grade. Just load the truck, Stevens. But fuel costs alone would save the company nearly $40,000 a month. I ran the numbers. Mike's expression flattened. You've been here 2 weeks. Focus on your job. Marcus watched this exchange from 30 feet away, pretending to check inventory on his clipboard. He noticed things other people missed. Always had. It's what made him good at his old job, the one he left behind in San Francisco along with everything else. The way Kat held herself. Too straight. Too confident for someone supposedly learning to operate a forklift for the first time. Her watch, quickly hidden under her sleeve when she thought no one was looking. Patek Philippe. He'd seen enough of them in boardrooms to recognize the elegant face, the subdued luxury. $80,000 minimum, probably more. Her questions. New hires asked about bathroom breaks and overtime pay. Kat asked about supply chain optimization, warehouse efficiency metrics, why certain routes took longer than the data suggested. The way managers deferred to her when they thought no one was watching. Small things. A step back, a pause before correcting her. The weight of unspoken authority. He'd seen her face on the company website. Day 3 during his lunch break when curiosity got the better of him and he'd Googled Sterling Global Solutions. Catherine Sterling, founder and CEO, 35 years old. Built a logistics empire from a single delivery truck 10 years ago. Net worth estimated at $2.3 billion. Playing undercover boss in her own warehouse. Marcus turned back to his clipboard. Not his problem. He'd learned that lesson the hard way. Keep your head down, do your job, go home to Emma. That was the only equation that mattered now. The incident happened at 2:47 p.m., right when Marcus's mind was starting to drift toward Emma's science fair project, wondering if the craft store on Colfax had poster board on sale. New worker. Early 20s headphones in, scrolling through his phone while walking between pallets. The kind of distraction that killed people in warehouses. Marcus saw it unfold in slow motion. The forklift backing up its warning beeper, cutting through the ambient noise. The driver checking his mirrors but not seeing the kid who was about to step directly into his path. 3,000 pounds of steel and momentum. Marcus didn't think. Thinking took time they didn't have. He ran. 15 feet, 10, 5. He hit the kid with his shoulder, a tackle that would have made his high school football coach proud, sending them both sprawling across the concrete floor. The kid's phone skittered away, screen cracking against a support beam. The forklift driver slammed the brakes. Tires screamed. The load, shifted tipped, came crashing down in an explosion of cardboard and plastic. Thousands of dollars in merchandise scattered across the bay floor. Silence. Everyone staring. Marcus helped the kid up. You okay? The kid nodded, too shocked to speak, headphones dangling around his neck like evidence. Kane! Mike's voice cut across the warehouse floor. What the hell? Marcus turned. Mike's face was red veins standing out on his neck. Behind him, Marcus could see Cat Stevens watching phone out recording. He didn't hear the beeper, Marcus said, keeping his voice level. So you destroyed $12,000 in merchandise. Better than a funeral. Mike's jaw worked. My office. Now. The write-up took 20 minutes. Marcus sat in the plastic chair across from Mike's desk while his supervisor filled out the incident report in triplicate pen, pressing hard enough to leave impressions through all 3 sheets. I gotta report this. Mike wouldn't meet his eyes. 47 minutes production stopped. Damaged goods. Corporate's gonna want someone's head. I understand. Off the record. Mike set down his pen. You did the right thing, but that doesn't matter to the spreadsheet jockeys upstairs. Marcus just nodded. He'd learned a long time ago that being right and being rewarded were 2 different things. His phone buzzed at 11:38 p.m. Marcus was alone in the shipping bay doing inventory counts for the night manifest. The warehouse at night was different, quieter, the hum of fluorescent lights more pronounced, the shadows deeper. Mrs. Chen's name on the screen. Marcus, I'm so sorry. Her voice was tight with worry. Emma woke up crying. She's asking for you. I can't calm her down. The nightmare. The one about Grace and the car and the moment everything ended. Emma had them less frequently now, but they still came. Usually when she was stressed or tired or her mind wouldn't let her rest. Marcus looked at the clock on the wall. 4 hours left in his shift. Leaving meant a write-up possible termination, especially after this afternoon's incident. Staying meant Emma crying alone, afraid needing her father, and finding only the absence where he should be. No hesitation. I'm coming, 20 minutes. He clocked out, ignored the night supervisor's questions, ran to his truck in the parking lot. The 2003 Ford F-150 coughed to life, its engine rattling like loose change in a tin can. 187,000 miles. The check engine light had been on so long, Marcus had stopped seeing it. Denver at midnight was a different city. Empty streets, traffic lights blinking yellow. The occasional homeless person huddled in doorways. He drove past his old office building downtown, 52 floors of glass and steel, and the ghosts of the person he used to be. 3 years ago, he'd worked up there. Corner office. View of the mountains. Salary that made his current paycheck look like a rounding error. 3 years ago, his phone had rung 16 times while he was in a meeting. Unknown number. He'd ignored it, focused on the presentation, the client, the crisis that seemed so urgent at the time. By the time he checked, Grace was already gone. The hospital had her effects in a plastic bag. Her wedding ring. The grocery list in her handwriting. Emma's permission slip for the zoo field trip that Grace had been planning to drop off at school after pickup. The drunk driver had walked away with a broken arm. Grace never walked anywhere again. Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter, pushed the memory down. Not now, not when Emma needed him present, not haunted. Mrs. Chen's apartment building appeared on his right. He parked illegally, ran up 3 flights of stairs. Emma crashed into him the moment Mrs. Chen opened the door. Daddy, I'm here, baby, I'm here. He scooped her up, felt her arms lock around his neck, her face buried in his shoulder. I had the dream again. Her voice was muffled, wet with tears. About Mommy, and the car, and the hospital with the bright lights, and everyone was sad and you were crying, and I didn't understand why Mommy wouldn't wake up, and shh, it's okay. I've got you. Mrs. Chen hovered in the doorway, wringing her hands. She's been like this for an hour. I didn't know what to do. I gave her warm milk, tried reading to her, but she just kept asking for you. You did perfect, thank you. Marcus carried Emma to his truck, her weight familiar and precious against his chest. She was getting bigger. Soon, she'd be too big to carry like this. The thought made something in his chest ache. He buckled her into the car seat she was rapidly outgrowing, her tear-stained face looking up at him in the dim interior light. "Are we going home?" Marcus checked the time. 12:47 a.m. Home was 45 minutes round trip. By the time he got her settled, got back to the warehouse, his shift would be over. Missing the rest of it after this afternoon's incident would probably mean termination. But taking her back to the warehouse, letting her sleep in the break room while he finished inventory. "I'm taking you with me," he said. "You can sleep on the couch in the break room. It'll be an adventure." Emma wiped her eyes. Like camping. Exactly like camping, but with better snacks. She managed a small smile. It felt like winning the lottery. The warehouse was nearly empty when they returned. Just the skeleton night crew, the hum of machinery, the echo of forklifts in distant bays. Marcus made a nest of his jacket on the break room couch. Emma curled up, already half asleep, the adrenaline of her nightmare finally fading. "Daddy." "Yeah, sweetheart. I'm sorry I woke you up at work." "Don't be sorry. Never be sorry for needing me. That's what I'm here for." "I love you. I love you too. More than all the stars in your science project." She smiled, eyes closing. Within minutes, her breathing evened out, deep and peaceful. Marcus stood there watching her sleep, this small person who'd reorganized his entire universe without even trying. 3 years ago, he'd thought losing his career would destroy him. Instead, it had saved him, taught him what mattered, given him something real to build instead of just problems to fix for strangers who'd forget his name the moment the crisis passed. Mike appeared in the doorway at 3:30 a.m. "Kane, someone wants to see you. Offices?" Marcus looked at Emma, still sleeping. "Can it wait until—" "No, bring her if you have to." Something in Mike's voice made Marcus's stomach tighten. This wasn't about the inventory, this was something else. He gathered Emma carefully, trying not to wake her. She stirred, mumbling something about planets, then settled against his shoulder. The walk to the offices felt longer than it should have. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, their footsteps echoing on concrete. Emma's warm breath against his neck. Through the frosted glass of the manager's office, Marcus could see a silhouette. Familiar posture, the invisible weight of authority. He knew what was coming. The door opened. Catherine Sterling stood behind the desk, no longer pretending to be Cat Stevens. Designer suit, hair down. The full force of her presence no longer hidden behind a fake name tag and borrowed coveralls. "You're fired, Mr. Kane." And that's when Emma looked up at the woman who held her father's future in her hands and said the words that would change everything. "But my daddy didn't do anything wrong." Emma's voice filled the small office like a bell in a cathedral. Clear, unwavering. The kind of truth only children could deliver without calculation. Catherine Sterling stared at the 8-year-old like she'd just spoken in a language Catherine had forgotten she knew. Her mouth opened, closed. Something flickered across her face that looked almost like pain. Marcus touched Emma's shoulder. "Em, it's okay." "It's not okay." Emma didn't look away from Catherine. "You said he's fired, but he saved that man today, the one with the headphones. Daddy's a hero." The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the same steady hum Marcus had listened to for 6 months. The clock on the wall read 3:47 a.m. His shift didn't end for another hour, but somehow he knew that didn't matter anymore. Catherine moved around the desk. Her heels were silent on the concrete floor, expensive leather making no sound. She crouched down, putting herself at Emma's eye level. "What's your name?" Her voice had changed. Softer. Something underneath the CEO armor. "Emma Kane." Emma's fingers tightened on Marcus's vest, but she didn't back away. "Are you really going to fire my daddy?" "I don't know yet." Catherine's eyes searched Emma's face like she was looking for something she'd lost. Tell me something. Does your dad take good care of you? Emma's chin lifted. The best. He makes me French toast every morning, even when he's really tired. And he reads to me every night. We're on book 5 of Harry Potter. That's the longest one. Book 5? That's impressive. Daddy says smart girls read big books. Emma paused. Are you going to fire him because he saved that man? Because that would be really mean. Catherine stood slowly. She looked at Marcus for a long moment, and he met her gaze without flinching. Whatever test this was, he'd either pass or he wouldn't. Some outcomes couldn't be controlled. He'd learned that in a hospital corridor 3 years ago when a doctor used the word sorry, like it could fill the hole the world had just blown through his chest. The night shift manager reported you stopped the entire production line 2 nights ago. Catherine's voice was back to business, but something in her eyes remained soft. Cost us 47 minutes of productivity. Yes, ma'am. You could have just yelled a warning. I did. He didn't hear. Marcus shifted Emma's weight slightly. She was getting heavy, leaning against his leg now. So I did what I had to. 47 minutes of downtime for one worker. Marcus held her gaze. 47 minutes is nothing compared to a funeral. Or explaining to his mother why her son didn't come home. I've had to explain that kind of thing to a 5-year-old. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. The silence stretched. Outside the office, the warehouse hummed with the rhythm of work continuing whether they were part of it or not. Catherine pulled a chair out from the wall, gestured toward it. Sit. I'd rather stand. It wasn't a request, Mr. Kane. Marcus remained standing. Emma pressed closer to his leg. Catherine's expression shifted, something that might have been respect crossing her features. She moved to the window overlooking the warehouse floor, hands clasped behind her back. I've fired 3 people this month, she said to the glass. 1 was skimming inventory, signing for deliveries that never arrived, pocketing the difference. 1 was falsifying safety reports, putting every worker in this building at risk to make his numbers look good. The 3rd just stopped caring. Came in punched, the clock did the bare minimum, went home. Didn't matter to him that his negligence was costing the company, costing his co-workers. She turned back. You, Mr. Kane, apparently care too much. Is there a question in there? Why are you here? Catherine's hand swept to encompass the warehouse. You've got an MBA from Stanford. I pulled your file. Worked for Whitman and Associates in San Francisco. Senior crisis management consultant. You were making $240,000 a year 3 years ago. Now you're a night shift warehouse supervisor at 38. So I'll ask once. Why are you here? There it was. Marcus had wondered when his past would catch up. He'd used his real credentials when he applied, never bothered lying on the application. Most places didn't check beyond the basics. Most places didn't have CEOs working undercover to find honest people. Things change, Marcus said. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're entitled to. Emma tugged on his vest. Daddy, I'm sleepy. Marcus lifted her, settled her on his hip even though she was getting too big for it. She rested her head on his shoulder, her breath warm against his neck. I need to take her home. If you're going to fire me, just say it. Catherine watched them, her expression unreadable. Then she shook her head slowly. You're not fired, but we need to talk, and it can't wait. She checked her watch. Patek Philippe visible now that she wasn't pretending to be anyone else. My son's school called an hour ago. He got into a fight, 3rd time this month. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you... Catherine's voice held an edge sharp enough to draw blood. Because I'm not sure I am, not anymore. She moved back to the window. I don't know my own kid. I hire people to pick him up from school, people to make his meals, people to help with homework. I see him maybe 6 hours a week. And when I do, he's angry at me, at everything." Marcus said nothing. This wasn't his problem. He had enough of his own. "I watched you these past 2 weeks." Catherine continued, still facing the window. "Really watched. I've seen you bring Emma here right before your shift starts. Seen you help her with math problems in the break room. Watched you teach her to tie her double knots in the parking lot last Thursday. Patient as hell even though you were running late." She turned. "She's your whole world. She's my daughter." "Exactly. That's what I can't figure out." Catherine crossed her arms. "You gave up everything to be here. A career, money, San Francisco. And I keep asking myself why. Why would someone with your credentials, your potential, choose this?" The question hung in the air between them. Emma's breathing had slowed, evening out as she drifted toward sleep. Marcus had asked himself the same thing 1,000 times. Asked it in the emergency room when the doctors came out with their careful, rehearsed expressions. Asked it at Grace's funeral when Emma cried so hard she couldn't breathe. Asked it every morning when his alarm went off at 2:30 and his whole body ached. "Because she needs me here," he said quietly. "Not a version of me on the phone from San Francisco, not weekend visits and child support checks. She needs me making breakfast and tying shoes and showing up to parent-teacher conferences even when I'm half dead from exhaustion. That's it. You just chose this every single day." Something in Catherine's face cracked. Just slightly, but Marcus saw it. The exhaustion underneath the expensive suit. The loneliness that came from building an empire while losing everything that mattered. He'd seen that look before in mirrors, in the faces of clients who called Whitman and Associates as a last resort when their companies were circling the drain and they'd run out of options. "I need your help." Catherine's voice had lost all pretense. "Not with the warehouse. With something bigger. But first I need to know if you're someone I can trust." Marcus adjusted Emma's weight on his hip. "You've been testing me for 2 weeks. You already know the answer." "Maybe." Catherine's arms tightened across her chest. "Or maybe I just know you won't steal from me, and you'll stop the line to save someone's life. That's not the same as trust." "Then what do you want from me? The truth? Why did you really leave San Francisco?" The warehouse hum filled the silence. Marcus could refuse to answer. Could walk out right now, find another job tomorrow. Denver was full of warehouses, and he'd proven he could do the work. But something in Catherine's eyes made him pause. Not the power or the money, but the same desperation Marcus had felt 3 years ago when the world fell apart and nothing made sense anymore. "My wife died in a car accident." The words came out flat, rehearsed from repetition. "Grace, 3 years ago this April. Drunk driver. 2:45 in the afternoon. Sunny day. She was on her way to pick up Emma from kindergarten." He felt Emma stir against his shoulder but didn't stop. "I was in a meeting, phone on silent. I had 23 missed calls by the time I checked. When I got to the hospital, Emma was sitting in a waiting room with a social worker asking when Mommy was going to wake up." Catherine's expression softened completely, the CEO mask dissolving. "I couldn't do it anymore." Marcus heard his own voice like it was coming from somewhere else. "Couldn't sit in boardrooms fixing other people's crises while my daughter grew up without me. Grace's parents live here in Denver. They offered to help with Emma. So I came." He met Catherine's eyes. "That's the truth. I chose this because the alternative was losing her too. Emma's the only family I have left. So yeah, I gave up San Francisco and the salary and the corner office and all of it. And I'd do it again. Every single time." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The fluorescent lights buzzed. Somewhere in the warehouse a forklift beeped. The world kept turning. Catherine nodded slowly as if Marcus had just answered a question she hadn't asked out loud. My CFO is trying to steal my company. The words came out sharp, precise. Richard Dalton, along with 3 board members. They've been moving assets, falsifying reports, setting me up to look incompetent so they can force me out. Her jaw tightened. I have 5 days to prove it, or I lose everything. Marcus processed this. Corporate espionage, embezzlement. The kind of crisis he used to parachute into for $250,000 in consulting fees. And you're telling me this because you used to fix problems exactly like this for a living, and because you're the only person in this building who doesn't want anything from me except an honest paycheck. Catherine pulled an envelope from inside her jacket. Come with me to San Francisco tomorrow. Emergency board meeting. I need someone who can read financial forensics, spot the gaps, present evidence without flinching when Rick threatens a lawsuit. 1 day, maybe 2. She slid the envelope across the desk. $75,000, plus expenses, plus a permanent consulting position if this works. Flexible hours, work from Denver, name your rate, but I need you to say yes right now. Marcus stared at the envelope. $75,000 would cover rent for 18 months. Would let him move out of the apartment where the heater broke every winter and Emma wore 2 sweaters to bed. Would mean her asthma medication without having to choose between that and groceries. But tomorrow was Friday. Emma's science fair is tomorrow, he heard himself say. 3 p.m. She's been working on her solar system project for 2 months. I promised I'd be there. Catherine didn't hesitate. Bring her. I'll fly you both out. Put you up at the Fairmont. She can do her science fair when we get back. I'll call the school myself, explain it was a family emergency. No. Catherine blinked. No. The science fair is Friday at 3. If I do this, I'm on a plane back to Denver by Friday noon. Non-negotiable. I'm not missing it. You're negotiating from a position of weakness. Catherine's voice held a note of disbelief. You know that, right? I could find someone else. Could you? Marcus shifted Emma to his other hip. In 5 days, someone who knows corporate forensics who you can trust, who won't leak this to the press or the board members you're investigating. You came to me because I'm the best option you have, so either you accept my terms or you don't. But I'm not budging, not on this. Catherine stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed, a short, surprised sound that seemed to startle them both. Whitman trained you well. They did. Catherine's expression shifted. Calculation, respect, something that might have been hope. Fine. You're back by Friday noon. Anything else? Yeah. Marcus met her eyes. If this works, if we prove Rick is stealing, I want that consulting position in writing. 30 hours a week maximum. All remote from Denver. Never at night. Never on weekends. And I need Emma covered on my health insurance starting immediately. Not in 2 weeks when I hit 6 months here. You're really going to make me agree to all that? Yes. Catherine extended her hand. Deal. I'll send a car at noon today. Wheels up at 2 p.m. Marcus shook it, feeling the firm grip, the calluses that had formed over 2 weeks of warehouse work. I need to see the financials before I commit fully. If your case is weak, I walk. Fair enough. I'll have everything sent to your phone in an hour. Catherine pulled out a business card, wrote a number on the back. My direct line. Call me when you've reviewed the files. Marcus pocketed the card. I need to get Emma home. Go. And, Marcus. Catherine's voice stopped him at the door. Thank you. For being honest. For being the kind of person who stops production lines to save strangers. For being exactly what I needed to find. Marcus looked back at her. This woman who had everything except what mattered. Who'd built an empire but lost sight of her son. Who was brilliant enough to know she needed help and humble enough to ask for it from a warehouse worker. "You're welcome," he said. "But Catherine, if we do this, it's going to get ugly. Board members are going to feel betrayed. People you considered friends. Are you ready for that? I don't know." The vulnerability in her voice was startling. "But I know I can't keep doing what I'm doing, with the company, with Ryan. Something has to change." "Yeah," Marcus said softly. "It does." He carried Emma out to his truck, the envelope heavy in his pocket, the weight of Catherine's desperation settling on his shoulders like a familiar coat he'd thought he'd given away for good. Emma stirred as he buckled her into the car seat. "Daddy." "Yeah, sweetheart. Are you in trouble?" "No, go back to sleep." That lady seemed sad. Emma's eyes were half closed, fighting to stay open. "Really, really sad. Why do you think that—" "She looked at you the way I look at pictures of Mommy." Emma yawned, like she's missing something important and doesn't know how to find it. The words hit harder than they should have. Marcus pulled out of the parking lot, headed toward their apartment, watching the dark streets pass, the city still mostly asleep. When he glanced in the rearview mirror, Emma's eyes had closed her face peaceful in the way only children could be, unburdened by the weight of choices not yet made. But she was right. Catherine Sterling had everything. Money power, a logistics empire that spanned 3 continents. But when she'd talked about her son, about seeing Marcus with Emma, there had been something hollow in her voice, the sound of a person who'd won every battle except the ones that mattered. Marcus knew that sound. He'd made it himself 3 years ago, sitting in his office 60 floors above Manhattan, returning client calls while his daughter waited for him at Grace's parents' house, wondering why Daddy was never home anymore. The difference was he'd gotten a second chance. A terrible, devastating second chance born from tragedy and loss, but a chance nonetheless. The question was whether he could help someone else choose differently without losing what he'd fought so hard to build. His phone buzzed at 5:23 a.m. just as the first light was breaking over the Rockies. Marcus sat at his kitchen table, Emma asleep in her room, the financial files Catherine had sent spread across his laptop screen. He'd been reading for an hour, making notes, following the money trails, and what he'd found made his stomach tight. Catherine's case wasn't just solid, it was airtight. Shell companies in Delaware and the Cayman Islands. Consulting fees to firms that didn't exist. Board members with undisclosed stakes in Sterling's competitors. A systematic betrayal orchestrated over 18 months. Richard Dalton wasn't just stealing. He was setting Catherine up to take the fall for his theft. Marcus picked up his phone, dialed the number Catherine had given him. She answered on the first ring. "Well, you've got him. The case is rock solid." "How solid?" "Criminal charges solid. This isn't just corporate malfeasance. This is wire fraud, embezzlement, possibly RICO if the prosecutors want to push it. Rick's going to prison if you play this right." Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, "So, you're in." Marcus looked toward Emma's room, where his daughter slept, surrounded by her solar system project notes, trusting that her father would keep his promises. "I'm in. But Catherine, when this breaks, it's going to get ugly. You're about to burn down a quarter of your executive team." "I know." Her voice was steel-wrapped in exhaustion. "That's why I need someone I can trust. Someone who understands what actually matters." Marcus closed his laptop. Outside, Denver was waking up. Trucks on the street, the neighbor's dog barking, the ordinary sounds of a life he'd built from the ruins of another one. "We leave at 1, he said. "Emma comes with us, and I'm on a plane back by Friday morning no matter what." "Understood, Marcus." "Yeah, my son Tyler. He's 9. I thought about bringing him to San Francisco, introducing you and Emma. I thought maybe seeing you two together would help me figure out what I'm doing wrong." Marcus heard the crack in her voice, the same desperation he'd felt that first year after Grace died, when every decision felt impossible and nothing felt right. "You're not doing anything wrong," he said. You're just doing the right things in the wrong order. Work first, family second. The trick is flipping that. But my company will survive without you. Tyler won't, not in the way that matters. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Is it too late? He stopped calling me Mom 6 months ago. Now it's just Catherine, like I'm his landlord. It's only too late when you stop trying. Another silence, then, thank you. For agreeing to help. For the honesty. For all of it. You're welcome. Now, get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Marcus hung up, sat in the pre-dawn quiet of his kitchen. Through Emma's open door he could hear her breathing, steady and peaceful. In a few hours, he'd wake her up, make French toast, tell her about the trip to San Francisco. In a few hours, he'd step back into the world he'd left behind, use skills he'd thought he'd retired. But first he'd sit here in the quiet and remember why he'd made the choices he made. Remember what mattered. Because in the end, that was the only thing that did. Emma woke to the smell of French toast and cinnamon, the morning light slanting through her bedroom window in the particular way that meant Saturday, which was wrong because yesterday was Wednesday and her internal calendar never lied. She padded into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Marcus stood at the stove, already dressed, his old suit laid out on the back of the couch. The suit he hadn't worn since they moved to Denver. Daddy, why are you wearing fancy clothes? Marcus flipped the toast golden brown and perfect. Because we're going on a trip, sweetheart. Remember the lady from last night, Ms. Sterling. Emma climbed onto her stool, suddenly alert. The sad lady who wanted to fire you but didn't. That's the one. She asked me to help her with something important in San Francisco, and I said yes, but only if you could come with me. San Francisco. Emma's eyes widened. Where we used to live, where Mommy is. The question landed, like it always did, a small knife between Marcus's ribs. Grace wasn't in San Francisco. Grace was in a cemetery plot in Golden, Colorado, where they visited on her birthday and Mother's Day, and sometimes just because Emma needed to talk to the headstone like it could answer back. Where we used to live, yeah, just for 2 days. We'll be back Friday morning for your science fair. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing. Is this about the job? The different kind of job you told me about, kind of. Miss Sterling has a problem. People she trusted were stealing from her company, lying to her. I used to help fix problems like that before Mommy died. Marcus set the French toast in front of her, poured syrup in the exact amount she liked, not too much, not too little. Yeah, before that. Emma cut a precise triangle from her toast the way Grace had taught her when she was 4. Are you scared? A little. Of the plane? No. Marcus sat across from her. Of going back. San Francisco is where a lot of hard things happened, where I worked too much, where I wasn't there when Mommy needed me, where I made a lot of mistakes. But you're different now. I hope so. You are. Emma said it with the certainty only children possess. You make me breakfast every day. You read to me every night. You came and got me last night even though you were at work. That's different. Marcus felt something tight in his chest, loosen just slightly. You're very wise, you know that. I get it from you. She took another bite, swung her legs under the table. Can I bring Harry Potter on the plane? Absolutely. And my science fair notes, in case we have time to practice, whatever you want. Emma nodded, satisfied. Okay, when do we leave? Car comes at 1. We should pack. They spent the morning in a kind of organized chaos. Emma insisted on bringing her entire solar system presentation, all 17 note cards, and the poster board they'd bought at the craft store last week. Marcus packed his laptop, the files Catherine had sent, 2 changes of clothes because he had no idea how long this would actually take. His phone buzzed constantly. Catherine sending updates, additional files, background on the board members. Each message a reminder that he was stepping back into a world he'd sworn off, using skills he'd tried to bury under warehouse shifts and parent-teacher conferences. At 10:47 a.m., his phone rang. Not a text, an actual call. Catherine's voice was different in daylight, less exhausted, more focused. "Marcus, I need to prepare you for something. The board meeting is tomorrow morning at 7. I know that's early, but I moved it." "What? I called your assistant 2 hours ago. The meeting is now at 7 a.m. tomorrow, which gives us time to catch a flight back by 10. Emma's science fair is at 3. This was the only way to make it work." Silence on the other end. Then carefully, "You rescheduled my emergency board meeting for a third-grade science fair." "Yes." More silence. Marcus could almost hear Catherine processing this, recalibrating her understanding of how negotiations worked. "Most consultants would have asked me to reschedule the science fair. I'm not most consultants, and Emma's not most kids. She's been working on this project for 2 months. I'm not the kind of father who breaks promises for board meetings." "No," Catherine said quietly. "You're not. Okay, 7 a.m. tomorrow. I'll have my attorney there, my head of internal audit, and the 3 independent board members I trust. Rick doesn't know this is coming. Neither do his allies. We'll have the element of surprise." "Good. Surprise is half the battle." "Marcus." Catherine paused. "Thank you for doing this, for teaching me what it looks like to put family first. You'll get there. Just keep showing up." He hung up, found Emma standing in her doorway with her backpack Harry Potter book clutched to her chest. "Ready, Daddy." Marcus looked at his daughter. 8 years old, gap-toothed smile, Grace's eyes. The reason for everything. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm ready." The black SUV arrived at 11:58 a.m., 2 minutes early. Professional driver, no small talk, the kind of service that cost more per hour than Marcus used to make in a day at the warehouse. Mrs. Chen appeared at her window as they loaded bags. She waved, gave Marcus a thumbs up that somehow conveyed both approval and concern. He waved back, grateful for her in ways he couldn't articulate. Emma bounced in the back seat, nose pressed to the window, watching Denver slide past. "Daddy, have you ever been on a private plane before?" "No. This is a first for both of us." "Miss Sterling must be really, really rich." "She is. Does being rich make you happy?" Marcus looked at his daughter in the rearview mirror. "Not by itself. Money solves some problems, but it doesn't solve the important ones. Like missing your family. Exactly like that." The private terminal at Denver International was a different world. No security lines, no crowds, just a quiet lounge with leather furniture and coffee that probably cost more per cup than Marcus's entire grocery budget. Catherine was waiting. Still in business mode, tailored suit phone in hand, but something softer around her eyes when she saw Emma. "Hi, Emma." Emma looked up at the woman who'd almost fired her father. "Hi, Miss Sterling. Are we really going on a private plane?" "We are. Have you ever flown before?" "Once, when I was little, to visit Grandma and Grandpa. But it was a big plane with lots of people. This one is smaller, just us, and there's hot chocolate with marshmallows if you want." Emma's face lit up. "Really? Really?" Marcus watched this exchange, saw Catherine trying. Awkward, unpracticed, but genuine. The way someone tries when they've forgotten how to connect with kids and are desperately trying to remember. They boarded 20 minutes later. The jet was smaller than Marcus expected, seats for 8, configured like a living room. Wood paneling, leather everywhere. The kind of space where billion-dollar deals got made over scotch and handshakes. Emma pressed her face to the window as they taxied, her breath fogging the glass. Daddy looked the mountains. Marcus sat across from her laptop, already open, reviewing the files one more time. Catherine was on her phone, managing some crisis with her operations team, her voice low and controlled. The flight attendant brought Emma hot chocolate in a real mug ceramic and heavy with whipped cream and tiny marshmallows floating on top. "This is the best day ever," Emma announced to no one in particular. The plane lifted. Denver shrank below them. The Rockies spread out like God's own sculpture garden peaks catching the afternoon sun. Emma narrated everything she saw, her voice a steady stream of wonder. Marcus tried to focus on the files. Shell companies, wire transfers, the paper trail of Richard Dalton's betrayal laid out in spreadsheets and bank statements. But his mind kept drifting to the last time he'd flown to San Francisco 3 years and 2 months ago for Grace's funeral. He'd held Emma's hand the entire flight. She'd been 5 too young to understand why Mommy wasn't coming back old enough to know that something fundamental had broken. "Daddy," Emma's voice pulled him back. "Can I have another hot chocolate?" Marcus looked up. "Ask the flight attendant nicely." "I did. She said I have to ask you first." "1 more cup, then water." Emma grinned victorious. Catherine ended her call, moved to the seat across from Marcus. "What do you think?" After reviewing everything, Marcus pulled up a spreadsheet. "Richard's more entrenched than I initially thought. He's got personal relationships with 6 of the 9 board members. That means we need all 3 independents on our side, plus we need to flip at least one of Rick's allies. Can we do that? Depends on how solid their loyalty is, and whether they're implicated." Marcus highlighted a series of transactions. "These 3 board members here, they've been receiving consulting fees from the same shell companies Rick set up. Either they're in on it or they're being used as cover." Catherine leaned forward, studying the screen. "Harold Chen has been with me since the beginning. Same with Patricia Vance. I can't believe people surprise you. Usually not in good ways." Marcus pulled up another file. "But here's the thing. If we present this right, if we make it about their fiduciary duty instead of personal betrayal, we might get them to vote the right way. Self-preservation is a powerful motivator. You've done this before. 47 times. Corporate espionage, embezzlement, fraud. It's always the same pattern. Someone gets greedy, someone gets sloppy, someone gets caught." Catherine sat back, something like relief crossing her face. "I hired the right person. Don't celebrate yet. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. Board members are going to feel betrayed by you for investigating them. There will be shouting, threats of lawsuits. Rick's going to come at you hard. I'm ready." Marcus met her eyes. "Are you? Because this isn't just business. You trusted these people. Some of them are friends. That's going to make it personal whether you want it to or not." Catherine was quiet for a moment. "My mentor used to say in business there are no friends, only interests. I thought he was cynical. Now I think he was just realistic." Maybe, or maybe he'd forgotten that trust is the only currency that actually matters. Emma appeared between them, hot chocolate mustache on her upper lip. "What are you talking about, boring grown-up stuff?" Marcus said. "About the people who were stealing from Ms. Sterling." Catherine blinked. "You told her," she asked. "I don't lie to her about important things." Emma climbed into the seat next to Marcus. "Daddy says lying is for people who are scared of the truth, and that the truth might be hard, but it's always better than a pretty lie." "Your daddy is very wise," Catherine said softly. "I know." Emma took another sip of her hot chocolate. "He's the best daddy in the whole world." Marcus felt the familiar ache in his chest, the one that came whenever Emma said things like that. The weight of trying to be enough for a kid who deserved 2 parents and only had 1. They worked through the flight. Catherine asking questions, Marcus building the presentation they'd deliver tomorrow. Emma, reading Harry Potter, occasionally interrupting to ask what a word meant, or to share an observation about Dumbledore's questionable decision-making. Somewhere over Utah, Catherine's phone rang. She looked at the screen, something painful crossing her face. "I need to take this." She moved to the back of the plane. Marcus couldn't hear the conversation, but he could read Catherine's body language. The way her shoulders tensed, the hand that went to her forehead. The stance of someone being told something they didn't want to hear. She came back 5 minutes later, face carefully composed. "Tyler's school, another fight. The counselor wants to meet next week. I'm sorry. It's my fault. He's acting out because I'm never there. The counselor said he told another kid that his mom cares more about her company than about him." Catherine's voice cracked slightly. "He's 9 years old, and he's right." Emma looked up from her book. "You should tell him you're sorry." "I have, multiple times. No, I mean really tell him, like when Daddy messes up and has to apologize to me. He gets down on my level and looks me in the eyes and says, 'Emma, I'm sorry. I should have done better. I'll try harder next time.' And then he does try harder." Catherine stared at Emma like she'd just solved a quantum physics equation. "That's very good advice." "I know. Daddy's a really good apologizer." Emma went back to her book. "You should practice." Marcus caught Catherine's eye. She looked stunned, vulnerable, like an 8-year-old had just cracked open something she'd been trying to figure out for years. "Out of the mouths of babes," Marcus said quietly. "Yeah," Catherine's voice was thick. "Yeah." They landed at SFO at 4:47 p.m. Pacific Time. 3 hours in the air, 2 time zones crossed, and Marcus was stepping back onto ground he'd sworn he'd never return to. The city rose in the distance, that distinctive San Francisco skyline that used to mean home, and now just meant ghosts. Emma grabbed his hand as they descended the stairs. "You okay, Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetheart, just memories. Good ones or sad ones, both." The car waiting for them was another black SUV, another silent driver. They drove into the city through streets Marcus used to know by heart. The exit where Grace always missed the turn, the corner where they'd gotten their favorite Thai food, the park where they'd pushed Emma on the swings when she was 3. Emma pressed her face to the window. "Daddy, did we really live here? For a while. You were little." "I don't remember." "I know." Catherine gave the driver an address on Nob Hill, the Fairmont. Marcus had been there once for a client dinner that cost more than his monthly rent used to be. Emma's eyes went wide when they pulled up. "Is this a castle?" "Basically." Catherine said something almost like a smile crossing her face. The penthouse suite had 2 bedrooms, a living room with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that made Emma gasp. She ran to the window nose, pressed to the glass. "I can see the whole world." Marcus set down their bags, checked his watch. 5:23 p.m. The board meeting was in less than 14 hours. Catherine was already on her phone coordinating with her attorney. Marcus pulled out his laptop, started finalizing the presentation. The evidence had to be airtight. No room for interpretation, no gaps Rick could exploit. "Daddy," Emma appeared at his elbow. "Can we order room service? Ms. Sterling said we could have whatever we want." "What do you want? Mac and cheese, let's ask." Marcus looked at Catherine, who nodded, still on her phone. Emma called room service herself, her voice polite and careful. "Asking for mac and cheese, please. And could it have the kind with the breadcrumbs on top, if that's okay?" While they waited for food, Catherine ended her call. "My attorney is bringing the audit report tomorrow. We'll have documentation for every transaction, every shell company, every suspicious transfer." "Good. The more evidence, the better." Marcus pulled up a slide. "I want to walk through the presentation order. We start with the summary, let them know what's coming. Then we build the case piece by piece. Shell companies first, then the property purchases, then the insider trading allegations. Rick's going to explode. Let him. Emotional reactions make people careless. They say things they shouldn't. Reveal things they meant to keep hidden. Catherine moved to the window where Emma stood. What do you think, Emma Prettyview? It's beautiful. But I like Denver better. Why's that? Because that's where Daddy and I live. Where Mrs. Chen makes me cookies. Where my school is. Where Mommy's buried. Emma said it matter-of-factly the way kids do. This is pretty to visit, but home is home. Catherine's eyes met Marcus's over Emma's head. Something passed between them, understanding without words. Room service arrived on silver trays. Mac and cheese for Emma, breadcrumbs on top just like she asked. Caesar salads for the adults because neither of them felt like eating, but knew they should. They ate in comfortable near silence, Emma swinging her legs. Catherine checking her phone, periodically Marcus mentally running through tomorrow's presentation for the 40th time. At 7:30, Marcus announced bedtime. Emma protested, but half-heartedly exhaustion winning over excitement. He tucked her into the bed in the second bedroom. The sheets probably had a higher thread count than anything they owned. Big day tomorrow, sweetheart. Are you nervous? A little. You're going to do great. You always do great when you're helping people. Emma yawned. Ms. Sterling is lucky she found you. I think maybe we're all just lucky we found each other. That's a nice thing to say, Daddy. He kissed her forehead, left the door crack the way she liked it, nightlight glowing soft in the corner. When he returned to the living room, Catherine had papers spread across every surface. Financial statements, email printouts, board member profiles, the architecture of betrayal laid out in black and white. I can't believe it's come to this, she said without looking up. Rick's been with me since the beginning. I promoted him to CFO 5 years ago, trusted him with everything. That's why he could do this. Trust creates opportunity. Marcus sat across from her. But it also creates blind spots. He knew you wouldn't be looking. Not at him. How do you stand it? Catherine finally met his eyes. Seeing the worst in people all the time. Doesn't it make you cynical? Marcus thought about this. I don't see the worst. I see people making choices. Usually bad ones, but choices nonetheless. And yeah, some people choose to steal and lie and betray, but other people choose differently. He gestured to the papers. You chose to investigate, to find the truth even though it hurt. You chose to work undercover in your own warehouse instead of hiring someone else to do it. You chose to help Emma and me instead of just firing me and moving on. I didn't help you. You helped me. We helped each other. That's how it's supposed to work. Catherine was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing patterns on the financial statements. Can I ask you something personal? Depends on the question. Do you ever regret it? Leaving Whitman? Leaving all this? She gestured to the suite, the city beyond the windows, the world of money and power and influence. Marcus looked toward Emma's room where his daughter slept, surrounded by luxury she'd never remember. I regret that Grace died. I regret that Emma grew up without her mother. I regret that I can't give Emma everything I used to imagine I could. But leaving, choosing her over my career. He shook his head. That's the only thing I'm absolutely certain I got right. Even though it's hard. Even though you're working a warehouse job making a fraction of what you used to. Especially because it's hard. The easy choice would have been staying in San Francisco, hiring nannies, seeing Emma on weekends, telling myself I was providing for her future while missing her present. But easy doesn't mean right. Catherine's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, something painful crossing her face. Tyler's father, asking if I want to come to Tyler's soccer game next weekend. She looked at Marcus. I have a board retreat scheduled in Aspen. I was planning to send my apologies. What are you going to do? I don't know. Catherine set down her phone. This morning, I would have said the retreat was more important, critical for Q4 planning. But now you're wondering if your CFO can plan Q4 from a prison cell. A small laugh escaped Catherine, something like that. Also, wondering what Tyler would say if I actually showed up to a soccer game. He'd probably fall over in shock. He'd probably be happy. Kids are pretty simple that way. They just want you there. Is it really that easy? Marcus thought about the past 3 years. The nightmares and the therapy appointments and Emma's first day of school without Grace to take pictures. The science fair projects and the parent-teacher conferences and the 1,000 small moments that added up to a life. No, he said honestly. It's not easy at all, but it's worth it. And it gets easier the more you show up. Eventually, it becomes natural, instead of a choice you have to make. Catherine nodded slowly, something shifting in her expression. Tomorrow, after the board meeting, I'm going to call Tyler. Really call him, not just a check-in, a real conversation. Good. And, Catherine, don't just ask about school or homework. Ask about his favorite color, his favorite song, what makes him laugh. The small stuff matters. The small stuff matters, Catherine repeated like she was memorizing it. Okay, I can do that. They worked until 2 a.m. building and rebuilding the presentation, running through possible objections, preparing for every angle Rick might use to defend himself. When they finally stopped, Catherine looked exhausted but focused. Thank you for this. For all of it. I know you didn't have to say yes. Yeah, I did. You needed help. I could provide it. Sometimes it's that simple. Nothing's that simple. Sure it is. Someone needs help. You can help. You help. Everything else is just noise. Catherine smiled, tired but genuine. Emma's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. She's the reason for all of this. The reason I'm here. The reason I said yes to you. The reason I keep showing up. She knows that, right? How much you love her. Marcus thought about Emma asleep in the next room, her science fair notes on the nightstand, Harry Potter book marked at chapter 17. I hope so. I tell her every day, but I also try to show her. That's the important part, not the words. The showing up. The showing up, Catherine echoed. That seems to be the theme tonight. It's the theme of everything, at least everything that matters. Marcus stood, stretched, muscles tight from sitting too long. We should sleep. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. Marcus, Catherine's voice stopped him at his bedroom door. When this is over, when we've dealt with Rick and the board and all of it, will you help me with Tyler? I don't mean as a consultant. I mean as someone who knows how to do this right, how to choose differently. I don't have all the answers, Catherine. I'm still figuring it out myself. I know, but you're further along than I am, and I need help, real help. Not a parenting consultant or a family therapist. Someone who understands what it's like to make this choice. To put your kid first, even when it costs everything. Marcus looked at this woman who had everything except what she needed most. Who'd built an empire but forgotten to build a relationship with her son. Who was brilliant and powerful and completely lost when it came to the things that actually mattered. Yeah, he said quietly. I'll help. We'll figure it out together. Catherine's smile was grateful, vulnerable, real. Thank you. For everything. For being exactly what I needed to find. Marcus went to his room, closed the door softly. Through the wall he could hear Emma's soft breathing, the sound that had become his North Star these past 3 years. He checked his phone. One message from Grace's mother. Thinking of you. Sending love. She always knew when he needed it. He texted back in SF with Emma, home Friday for the science fair. Miss you. The response came immediately. Grace would be proud of who you've become. Marcus stared at those words for a long time. Then he set down his phone, pulled out the photo he always carried. Grace Emma at 4. Marcus before everything changed. I hope you'd be proud, he whispered to the picture. I hope I'm doing this right. Grace smiled back at him, frozen in a moment, when everything was still whole, still possible, still beautiful. He put the photo on the nightstand face up for the first time in months. Tomorrow he'd face a boardroom full of people who'd betrayed each other. Tonight he'd sleep knowing that his daughter was safe in the next room and that he'd kept every promise he'd made to her. And in the end, that was the only metric that mattered. Marcus's phone alarm went off at 5:47 a.m., pulling him from a sleep that hadn't quite reached rest. He silenced it, lay in the unfamiliar bed for a moment, orienting himself. San Francisco. The Fairmont. The board meeting in 73 minutes. Through the wall, he heard Emma stirring. Early for her, but the 3-hour time difference had scrambled her internal clock. He found her in the living room, curled up on the couch with her Harry Potter book still in her pajamas. Morning, sweetheart? Morning, Daddy? She looked up, eyes bright despite the hour. Are you going to win today? I'm going to try. But you're going to win right because you're the smartest daddy in the world. Marcus sat beside her, pulled her close. Being smart doesn't always mean winning. Sometimes it just means doing the right thing even when it's hard. Like when you saved that man at the warehouse. Exactly like that. Emma studied his face with the seriousness only children could pull off. Are you scared? A little, yeah. But you're still going to do it. Yeah. Because Miss Sterling needs help. And when someone needs help and you can give it, you do. Even when you're scared. Emma nodded like he'd just explained the theory of relativity. Okay, then you'll win, because you always do the right thing, and that's the same as winning. If only the world worked that way. But Marcus kissed the top of her head and didn't correct her, let her keep that certainty a little longer. Catherine emerged from her room at 6:15 already in full armor. Tailored suit hair perfect, the CEO mask firmly in place. But Marcus saw the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands weren't quite steady when she poured coffee. Ready? She asked. As ready as we'll ever be. Marcus went to his room, pulled on the suit that still fit like it was made for him because it had been back when he could afford tailors, and thought things like that mattered. He checked himself in the mirror. The consultant was back, at least on the surface. Underneath, he was still just a father trying to keep promises to his daughter. Emma appeared in the doorway. Daddy, you look fancy. Fancy enough. Like a superhero in a suit. Not quite a superhero, Em. You are to me. She held out his tie, the navy one with subtle pinstripes. Ms. Sterling said I could go with you. To her office. Is that okay? Marcus knelt down, let Emma attempt to tie his tie. Her small fingers fumbled with the silk, trying to remember the steps he'd taught her. You'd have to be very quiet and patient. It might be boring. I promise I'll be the quietest girl ever. I want to see you be brilliant. Who told you I was going to be brilliant? Ms. Sterling, last night when you were sleeping. She said you were going to save her company, and she was lucky she found you. Marcus finished the tie Emma had started, checked it in the mirror. Ms. Sterling talks too much. She was crying a little bit. I think she's still really sad about her son. Yeah, she is. Are you going to help her with that too? Marcus looked at his daughter, this small person with Grace's eyes and an empathy that constantly surprised him. I'm going to try. Good. Everybody needs help sometimes. That's what you always say. They left the suite at 6:42. Catherine had arranged for hotel childcare, but Emma had quietly, firmly insisted on coming. Something in the way she'd asked made both adults agree. The car ride to Sterling Global Solutions headquarters was quiet. Catherine on her phone, managing some crisis with her operations team. Emma looking out the window at a city waking up. Marcus reviewing his notes one final time, though he'd memorized every number, every transaction, every piece of evidence. The building rose 52 floors above the financial district, all glass and steel and the architecture of ambition. Marcus had been in buildings like this 100 times. They all felt the same, cold, impressive, designed to make you feel small. Catherine's office was on the top floor corner suite with views of the bay. She set Emma up in the conference room adjacent to her office, turned on the TV, left her with juice boxes and a stack of books. "Your daddy will be in the meeting right next door," Catherine told Emma. "If you need anything, my assistant Rebecca is right outside." Emma looked very small in the big leather chair, but her voice was steady. "I'll be okay. Go save your company." Catherine and Marcus exchanged glances. "She's something else," Catherine said. "Yeah, she is." The boardroom was 3 doors down, large enough to hold 20 people comfortably, though today there would only be 13. 9 board members. Catherine, Richard Dalton, Marcus, and Catherine's attorney, a woman named Jennifer Park, who'd brought 3 banker's boxes of documentation. They arrived first, 6:53 a.m. Marcus set up his laptop, connected it to the projector. Catherine stood by the window looking down at the city she'd built her empire in. "You ready for this?" Marcus asked quietly. "No, but I'm doing it anyway. That's all courage is, doing it scared." The board members began arriving at 6:58. Marcus watched them file in reading body language categorizing allies and enemies. Judith Morrison, independent board member, early 60s, former CEO of a pharmaceutical company. She met Catherine's eyes, nodded once. Allie. Harold Chen, 63, tech entrepreneur on the board since Sterling Global went public. He avoided Catherine's gaze. Compromised or guilty? Patricia Vance, 42, venture capitalist, the youngest board member. Her expression was carefully neutral. Unknown. The others filed in. 3 more independents. 3 who Marcus had flagged as likely co-conspirators based on the financial records. Richard Dalton arrived last at 6:59, looking confident and well-rested. 48, expensive suit, the ease of someone who thought he'd already won. He saw Marcus, and something flickered across his face. Surprise, then calculation. "Catherine, I wasn't aware we were bringing in outside consultants for a board meeting." Catherine sat at the head of the table. "Richard, everyone, this is Marcus Kane. He'll be presenting this morning." "Presenting what exactly?" Richard's voice was smooth, but Marcus heard the edge underneath. "I thought this meeting was to discuss Q4 projections. Change of agenda." Catherine's voice could have cut glass. "Marcus has findings that require immediate board attention." Judith Morrison spoke up. "Catherine, this is highly irregular. We should have been briefed." "You're being briefed now. Shall we begin?" Marcus stood, moved to the front of the room. Every eye on him. The familiar rush of adrenaline, the clarity that came from standing in front of people who didn't want to hear what you had to say. "Good morning. My name is Marcus Kane. I'm a forensic consultant specializing in corporate financial analysis. Over the past 72 hours, I've been reviewing Sterling Global's financial records for the previous 18 months. He clicked to the first slide. Summary of findings in stark black text. What I found constitutes systematic embezzlement totaling $8.3 million involving shell companies, falsified consulting fees, coordinated asset transfers, and potential securities fraud. The room erupted. Board members talking over each other. Richard's face went pale, then red. This is outrageous. Richard stood chair scraping back. Catherine, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is slander. I'll sue you personally for defamation. I'll sue this consultant. Mr. Dalton. Marcus's voice cut through the chaos, calm and loud enough to command attention. Please sit down. You'll have an opportunity to respond when I'm finished. Richard remained standing. I don't have to listen to this. Judith Morrison's voice was steel. Sit down, Richard, or leave. Your choice. But if you leave, we'll vote on your termination in your absence. Richard sat. His jaw worked, but he said nothing. Marcus continued clicking through slides. Slide 2. Here are 4 Delaware LLCs created between January and March of last year. All list the same registered agent. All received consulting payments from Sterling Global totaling $1.2 million. Next slide. These companies have no employees, no office space, no website, no evidence of providing any actual services. The money was wired in, then immediately transferred to accounts in the Cayman Islands. He let that sink in. Watched faces around the table shift from skepticism to shock. Slides 3 through 5. Inventory loss reports from your warehouses. According to these, Sterling lost $600,000 worth of inventory to damaged goods last year. But according to insurance claims and actual warehouse logs, which I verified directly with facility managers, actual losses were $87,000. Someone pocketed the $513,000 difference. Harold Chen shifted in his seat, wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Marcus continued relentless. Slides 6 through 9. These Cayman accounts connect to a real estate holding company that recently purchased properties in Grand Cayman, Aspen, and Lake Tahoe. Total value $6.2 million. The beneficial owner of that holding company, according to property records filed with the respective jurisdictions, is Richard Dalton. Richard stood again. This is completely fabricated. Catherine hired someone to manufacture evidence because she wants me out. This is a coup, plain and simple. Mr. Dalton, I have bank statements, wire transfer records, property deeds, and email correspondence. All obtained through legal discovery authorized by the board's audit committee 3 months ago. The audit committee didn't authorize, Judith interrupted. Actually, we did, when Catherine brought preliminary concerns to me in confidence. I authorized a full forensic review. The room went silent. Marcus clicked to the next slide. Email from Richard Dalton to Apex Consulting, one of those shell companies. Quote, package delivered. Confirm receipt and process as discussed. This was sent the same day Sterling wired $340,000. Another slide. Mr. Dalton's calendar shows 6 meetings with Vincent Torres over the past year. Mr. Torres, as you know, is CEO of Torres Logistics, Sterling's primary competitor. No one else from Sterling was present at these meetings. Patricia Vance leaned forward. Competitors meet all the time. Industry events, conferences. Not in the Cayman Islands. Not 3 times. And not when each time Sterling lost a major contract to Torres Industries within 2 weeks. Here's a chart showing the correlation. Gasps around the table. Catherine's voice was quiet but clear. You've been feeding him our bids, Rick. I don't have to listen to this, I'm leaving. Richard moved toward the door. Judith stood. Sit down, we're not finished. Sit down, or I'll have security remove you and we'll vote on your termination right now. Your choice. Richard looked around the table, saw no allies, no escape routes. He sat. Marcus advanced to the final slides. Summary: $8.3 million in embezzlement, corporate espionage, breach of fiduciary duty, wire fraud, and likely RICO violations. I've prepared a full report for the board's attorneys. I've also compiled evidence packages for federal prosecutors should you choose that route. He closed the laptop. Questions? The silence was deafening. Patricia spoke first. How did we not catch this sooner? Because Mr. Dalton is smart. He kept individual transactions small enough to avoid automatic flags. He spread it across multiple vendors and account streams. And he had help. Marcus looked at Harold Chen and 2 other board members. Which brings me to supplementary evidence showing that 3 other executives received payments from these same shell companies, either as co-conspirators or as unwitting accomplices. The distinction matters legally, but the board needs to decide how to proceed. Harold stood face ashen. I didn't know. I thought those were legitimate consulting contracts. Rick said, anything you say right now can and will be used in legal proceedings. Jennifer Park, the attorney, said calmly. I strongly advise you to stop talking and retain counsel. Harold sat down looking 20 years older than he had 10 minutes ago. Catherine stood. The board needs to vote. I'm recommending immediate termination of Richard Dalton, Peter Chen, and Michael Rodriguez pending criminal investigation. All in favor? Wait. Richard's voice was desperate now. Catherine, we've been partners for 7 years. I helped you build this company. You can't just... You stole from me, from this company, from every employee who depends on Sterling for their livelihood, so yes, I can. I can, and I will. Judith voted first. Aye. Patricia, after a long moment. Aye. The 3 independent board members, aye, aye, aye. Harold, reluctantly knowing his own position was precarious, aye. The final vote, 7-2. The 2 dissenting votes from board members Marcus had flagged as likely co-conspirators. Catherine nodded to security waiting outside. Mr. Dalton, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You'll be hearing from our attorneys. Richard stood slowly. He looked at Catherine with pure hatred. You have no idea what you've done. I made this company. While you were playing CEO, I was doing the real work. I earned that money. No, Richard, you stole it. Catherine's voice was ice. Security, please. As they led Richard out, he stopped in front of Marcus. You're good, I'll give you that, but you just made an enemy you can't afford. Marcus met his eyes without flinching. I've seen this scenario 47 times in my career. You know what happens next. You get a lawyer, plead down to embezzlement, serve 5 to 7 years. Then you spend the rest of your life explaining to employers why you have a felony record. He gathered his papers. Or you could have just done your job honestly. But that ship sailed about 18 months ago. Richard was escorted out. The board members dispersed slowly, some in shock, others already on their phones with their own attorneys. Judith approached Catherine. That took courage. Most CEOs would have buried this quietly. Most CEOs haven't spent 2 weeks working undercover in their own warehouse, learning what integrity looks like from the people at the bottom. Judith smiled slightly. That explains a lot. Thank you for trusting me with this. Thank you for believing me. When the room finally cleared, just Catherine, Marcus, and Jennifer remained. Catherine sat down heavily, the adrenaline visibly draining. Is it done? She asked. The board vote is done, Jennifer said. Now comes the hard part. Federal investigation, shareholder lawsuits, media management. This will get worse before it gets better. But we have the truth on our side. We do. That counts for something. Marcus checked his watch. 8:47 a.m. We need to go. Flight leaves in 90 minutes. Catherine looked up. What? Emma's science fair. Friday at 3. We need to be on a plane in 90 minutes or we won't make it. For a moment, Catherine just stared at him. Then she laughed, a sound somewhere between exhaustion and disbelief. You just helped me save my company, and you're worried about a third-grade science fair. I made a promise. Catherine straightened her jacket. Then let's go keep it. They collected Emma from the conference room. She was exactly where they'd left her, reading Harry Potter juice box half-finished. Did you win? She asked, looking up. Yeah, sweetheart, we won. I knew you would. She closed her book, gathered her things with the efficiency of someone who'd learned early that life moved fast, and you had to keep up. The car was waiting. Catherine rode with them to the airport, still fielding calls from her attorney, her PR team board members with questions. In the private terminal, Catherine crouched down to Emma's level. Thank you for letting me borrow your dad today. You're welcome. Did he help you? More than you know. Good. Emma's expression turned serious. Now you should go help your son, like my daddy helps me. Catherine's eyes watered. You're right, I should. And Ms. Sterling, you should tell him you're sorry, and you should mean it. Daddy says apologies don't count unless you mean them. Your daddy is very wise. I know. He's the best. They boarded at 9:23. The plane lifted San Francisco, shrinking below them. Marcus watched the city disappear, felt something loosen in his chest. He'd come back, faced the ghosts, used the skills he thought he'd left behind. And now he was going home. Emma fell asleep 20 minutes into the flight, her head on Marcus's shoulder, her science fair notes clutched in her hand, even in sleep. Marcus pulled out his phone. A text from Catherine sent 5 minutes ago. Thank you doesn't cover it. You saved my company. You reminded me what matters. I'm calling Tyler when we land. Really calling him, and I'm blocking off Friday afternoons, every Friday, just for him, starting today. Marcus typed back, Good. Be patient with yourself, and with him. This is a process. The response came immediately. I know, but I'm ready to start. Because of you. Another text. The consulting contract is in your email, $150,000 annual retainer. 30 hours max, all remote. Full benefits starting today. Emma's covered. Marcus opened his email, scanned the contract. Everything they'd discussed in writing, legally binding. He signed it electronically, sent it back. His phone buzzed. Catherine again. One more thing. Tyler's soccer game is tomorrow at 10. I'm going, first time in 8 months. Wish me luck. Marcus smiled. You don't need luck, you just need to show up. That's the hard part. Everything else follows. The plane descended into Denver. Mountains coming into view, the city spread out below. Home. They landed at 12:34 p.m. Mountain Time. Marcus's phone rang as they taxied. Emma's school. Principal Davis. Mr. Kane just confirming Emma will be here for the science fair at 3. Marcus looked at his watch. 2 hours and 26 minutes. We just landed. We'll be there with time to spare. Wonderful. We've been looking forward to Emma's presentation. She's worked so hard. They made it to the school at 2:43 p.m. Marcus, still in his suit tie, loosened slightly out of breath from rushing through the airport and across town. Emma clutched her poster board, her solar system model, her 17 note cards filled with facts about planets and orbits and the vast emptiness of space. The gymnasium was filled with projects. Volcanoes and plant growth experiments and elaborate displays about the water cycle. Parents with cameras, teachers with clipboards, kids in various states of excitement and terror. Emma found her assigned spot, set up her display with the precision of someone who'd practiced this 100 times. Marcus stood back, watched his daughter transform from sleepy airplane passenger to confident young scientist. Mr. Kane. He turned. Miss Rodriguez, Emma's teacher. I'm so glad you made it. Emma's been talking about this project for weeks, about how you helped her with the research but let her do all the work herself. It's her project. I just drove her to the library. Still, not every parent makes that kind of time. Miss Rodriguez smiled. She's lucky to have you. Marcus watched Emma explain planetary orbits to a group of judges, her hands moving animatedly, her voice clear and confident. I'm the lucky one, he said quietly. The judging took an hour. Emma answered questions, demonstrated her rotating model, recited facts about astronomical units and elliptical orbits like she'd been born knowing them. When they announced the results, Emma took second place. Blue ribbon. Her face split into a grin so wide it made Marcus's chest ache. She ran to him, jumped into his arms despite being too big for that. Daddy, I got second. I'm so proud of you. You were amazing up there. Are you sad I didn't get first? Marcus set her down, crouched to her level. Not even a little bit. You worked hard. You did your best. That's all that matters. That's what Mommy used to say. Yeah, it is. Emma hugged him tight. I'm glad you came home for this. I promised, didn't I? You always keep your promises. That's why you're the best daddy ever. They left the school at 4:17 p.m. Emma's blue ribbon pinned to her shirt, her poster board under Marcus's arm. Ice cream? Marcus asked. Is that even a question? Sweet Dreams ice cream on Capitol Hill, their usual spot. Emma ordered chocolate chip and a waffle cone. Marcus got vanilla because some things didn't need to be complicated. They sat at their table by the window, the afternoon light golden and perfect. Did you really save Ms. Sterling's company? Emma asked between bites. I helped. She did most of the work. Are you going to help her with her son now? I think so, yeah. She's going to try harder, be there more, like I try to be there for you. Emma swung her legs, thoughtful. That's good. Everyone should have someone who shows up for them. Yeah, they should. His phone buzzed. Catherine. Just called Tyler. We talked for 40 minutes. 40 minutes he told me about his classes and his friends and a girl he likes. I wrote everything down so I won't forget. Thank you for pushing me to do this. Marcus smiled, typed back. How'd it feel? Scary. Amazing. Like I've been starving and didn't know it until I finally ate. We're getting dinner tomorrow after his soccer game, just the two of us. That's great. Proud of you. Couldn't have done it without you. You changed my life, Marcus. You and Emma both. Marcus pocketed his phone, looked at his daughter happily destroying her ice cream cone chocolate on her nose. You know you're pretty special, right? Because of my science fair project. Because of everything. Because you're kind and smart and you see things other people miss, like Ms. Sterling being sad. You noticed that before I did. Emma considered this. I think everybody's a little bit sad about something. That's okay, though, because everybody's also a little bit happy about something, too. You just have to find the happy parts. Marcus stared at his 8-year-old daughter, wondering when she'd gotten so wise. What's your happy part today? He asked. This. Emma gestured with her ice cream cone encompassing the table, the moment him. Right now. You and me and ice cream, that's my happy part. Mine too, sweetheart, mine too. They finished their cones in comfortable silence. Outside, Denver moved around them, people heading home from work, kids playing in the park across the street, the ordinary magic of a Friday afternoon. Marcus's phone buzzed one more time. Grace's mother. Heard about the science fair. Second place. Tell Emma we're so proud. Grace would be too. You both would make her so happy. Marcus showed Emma the text. She smiled that gap-toothed grin that was pure joy. I think Mommy knows, Emma said. About the science fair. About everything. I think she can see us from heaven. Yeah, Em, I think so too. They walked to the truck hand in hand, Emma chattering about her project, about the kids who got first and third place, about how Ms. Rodriguez said her presentation was the most thorough in the class. Marcus listened to every word, filed away every detail, grateful for this moment, this day, this life they'd built from the wreckage of another one. Tomorrow, he'd start his new consulting job. Tomorrow, Catherine would go to Tyler's soccer game. Tomorrow, the world would keep turning. But tonight, there was just this. Just Emma and science fairs and ice cream and the perfect ordinary beauty of keeping promises. And that, Marcus thought as he buckled Emma into her car seat, was more than enough. It was everything. Part 6. The apartment felt smaller after the Fairmont, but in a good way. Familiar, safe. The kind of small that meant home instead of limitation. Emma headed straight for the bathroom, announcing she needed to brush the chocolate off her teeth. Marcus stood in the kitchen looking at the space that had held their lives for 3 years. The fridge with its collection of Emma's drawings. The table where they ate breakfast every morning. The couch where they read Harry Potter every night. Nothing had changed. Everything had changed. His phone sat on the counter, the signed consulting contract in his email. $150,000 a year. Flexible hours. Work from home. Emma covered on his health insurance starting immediately. He could move them out of this apartment. Get a place with heat that actually worked, where Emma didn't have to wear 2 sweaters to bed in winter. Maybe a small house with a yard. Nothing fancy, just better. But standing here now, Marcus wasn't sure he wanted to leave. This place had been their refuge, the spot where they'd learned how to be a family of 2 instead of 3, where Emma had taken her first steps toward healing after Grace died, where Marcus had figured out how to be enough for her when he'd been terrified he never would be. Daddy. Emma appeared in her pajamas, the ones with stars that were getting too small. Can we read 2 chapters tonight, please? Marcus checked his watch. 7:43 p.m. Technically, bedtime was 8, but technically they'd also just saved a billion-dollar company and crossed 2 time zones, and Emma had placed second in her science fair. 2 chapters, he agreed. Emma's face lit up. She ran to her room, came back with Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, the thickest book in the series, the one that had taken them 2 months to get halfway through. They settled on the couch, Emma tucked under his arm, her head resting against his shoulder. Marcus opened to the bookmarked page, started reading. Dumbledore's Army, he read. Hermione. You're a genius. Emma interrupted, which she always did when something important occurred to her. Daddy. Yeah, sweetheart. Are you going to take the new job? The one Ms. Sterling gave you? I think so. Is that okay with you? Emma was quiet for a moment, thinking it through with the seriousness she applied to everything. Will you still make me breakfast? Every morning. And read to me at night, every night. And come to my school stuff, every single time. Then it's okay. She snuggled closer. I'm glad you're helping Ms. Sterling. She needs it. And now she can help her son like you help me. Marcus kissed the top of her head. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just finally noticed. He laughed, kept reading. Made it through 2 full chapters before Emma's breathing evened out her weight, going heavy against his side. He carried her to bed, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. Love you, baby girl. She mumbled something that might have been love you too, without fully waking. Marcus stood in her doorway for a long moment, watching her sleep. 3 years ago, she'd been 5 years old and asking why Mommy wouldn't wake up. Now she was 8, and placing second in science fairs and dispensing wisdom about showing up for the people you love. Time was strange that way, brutal and merciful in equal measure. His phone buzzed as he returned to the living room. Catherine. Tyler's game is at 10 tomorrow morning. I'm terrified. What if he doesn't want me there? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I've waited too long and he's already written me off? Marcus sat on the couch, typed carefully. He's 9. He hasn't written you off. He's just protecting himself from disappointment. Show up, be genuine, and give him space to be angry if he needs to be. Don't try to fix everything in one day. Easier said than done. Everything worth doing is. A pause, then, will you tell me how it goes tomorrow? I might need a pep talk afterward. Any time. That's what friends are for. Are we friends now? Marcus thought about that. 2 weeks ago, Catherine had been a stranger working undercover in her own warehouse. Now she was someone who'd trusted him with her company, her vulnerability, her desperate need to reconnect with her son. Yeah, he typed. I think we are. Another message came through immediately. Tyler just texted. He said he's glad I'm coming tomorrow. He used an exclamation point. An actual exclamation point. I can't remember the last time he used punctuation that implied emotion about me. Marcus smiled. That's good. That's really good. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's a big day. For both of us. You're starting your consulting work Monday, right? Yeah. First project is reviewing your Q4 restructuring plan. Go easy on me. I'm still recovering from corporate espionage. No promises. Marcus set down his phone, pulled out his laptop. The consulting contract was there signed and executed. Also there 3 emails from Catherine's team with projects that needed his attention. Supply chain optimization, warehouse efficiency analysis, board governance restructuring. The work was familiar, the same kind of problems he used to solve for Whitman and Associates, except now he'd be doing it from his kitchen table in sweatpants if he wanted, with Emma doing homework across from him. He opened the first file, started reading. Within minutes he was absorbed, seeing patterns, identifying inefficiencies, formulating solutions. The part of his brain that had been dormant for 3 years woke up stretched, remembered what it was built for. 2 hours later, he'd drafted preliminary recommendations for all 3 projects. He saved them, closed the laptop. Checked on Emma one more time. Still sleeping. Still peaceful. Still his entire world. Marcus got ready for bed. Lay in the dark, thought about the past 72 hours. The warehouse, Catherine's test, the board meeting, San Francisco, coming home, Emma's science fair. His phone lit up with one final message. Grace's mother again. I know today was hard, going back to SF, but I'm proud of you, for helping that woman, for keeping your promise to Emma, for being the father Grace always knew you'd be. Sleep well, sweetheart. Marcus stared at the message for a long time. Then he pulled out the photo he'd brought back from San Francisco, the one of Grace and Emma and him before everything broke. He set it on his nightstand face up where he could see it. I hope I'm doing this right, he whispered to the image. I hope you'd be proud. Grace smiled back at him, frozen at 32, forever young, forever whole, forever. The person who'd believed in him before he believed in himself. He closed his eyes, let sleep take him. Saturday morning came with sunlight through thin curtains and the sound of Emma singing in the bathroom. Some song from a movie he couldn't identify, but her voice was happy, unself-conscious. The sound of a kid who felt safe enough to be loud. Marcus made pancakes. Not French toast, because Saturday meant pancakes, a tradition they'd started the first weekend after Grace died, when neither of them knew what to do with the sudden expanse of empty time. Emma appeared still in her pajamas, hair sticking up in every direction. Pancakes, with chocolate chips as requested. She climbed onto her stool, watched him cook with the intensity she brought to everything. Daddy, can I ask you something? Always. Are you happy? The question caught him off guard. What do you mean? Like really happy? Not just okay happy or making the best of it happy. Really, really happy. Marcus flipped a pancake, bought himself time to think. Yeah, I am. Are you? Huh? I was just checking. Because sometimes you get this look on your face like you're remembering something sad. I do get sad sometimes. About Mommy, about things that didn't work out the way I planned. But that doesn't mean I'm not happy. You can be both. Emma considered this while Marcus plated her pancakes, arranged them in a smiley face because he couldn't help himself. I think Mommy would want us to be happy, Emma said finally. Even though she's gone. Maybe especially because she's gone. And Marcus sat across from her, his own pancakes forgotten. You're right, she would. She'd want us to have good lives, to be happy, to keep going. Then that's what we'll do. Emma drowned her pancakes in syrup with the confidence of someone who'd just solved a philosophical problem. We'll be happy for her. Deal. They ate in comfortable silence. Outside, Denver was waking up. Saturday morning sounds. Kids playing. Dogs barking. The world turning. Marcus's phone buzzed. Catherine. At the soccer field. He's warming up. He saw me and waved. I almost cried right there. Marcus typed back, breathe. You've got this. Just be present. Watch the game. Cheer when appropriate. Let him take the lead afterward. Okay, breathing, being present. Oh God, the game's starting. Marcus smiled, set down his phone. Emma was watching him. Ms. Sterling. Yeah, she's at her son's soccer game. Good. I hope he scores a goal. That would make her happy. I hope so too. They spent the morning cleaning the apartment. Emma insisted on vacuuming, a chore she normally avoided, but today she was energized, singing the entire time. Marcus did laundry, put away dishes, made the space feel cared for. His phone stayed quiet. He resisted the urge to check it constantly to see how Catherine was doing. She needed this time with Tyler without interference. At 12:34 p.m. his phone finally rang. Catherine's voice was thick with emotion. Marcus, he scored. Tyler scored a goal, and when he did, he looked right at me, made sure I was watching. That's amazing. We're getting lunch now, just the two of us. He asked me about the board meeting, about you. He wanted to know if I really worked in a warehouse for 2 weeks. What did you tell him? The truth. That I'd lost perspective. That I'd forgotten what mattered. That meeting you and Emma reminded me. Marcus heard noise in the background. Tyler's voice, young and excited, asking if they could get burgers. Go, Marcus said. Enjoy lunch. Call me later if you need to. Thank you. For everything. For believing I could do this. You're doing it. That's all you. I just reminded you it was possible. Catherine hung up. Marcus stood in his clean kitchen feeling something he couldn't quite name. Not pride exactly. More like witnessing. Seeing someone choose differently and knowing what that cost. Emma appeared with her backpack. Can we go to the library? I want to get the next Harry Potter. We're not done with this one yet. I know, but I want to see how thick the next one is for planning purposes. Marcus laughed. Sure, let's go to the library. They spent the afternoon in the children's section, Emma browsing shelves, Marcus answering work emails on his phone. The consulting work had officially started, apparently even though it was Saturday, but he could do it from a library while Emma read chapter books, and that made all the difference. At 4:17 p.m., they stopped at the grocery store. Marcus let Emma pick out ingredients for dinner. She chose spaghetti garlic bread and salad, the same meal Grace used to make on Saturday nights. Is it okay if we make Mommy's recipe? Emma asked in the pasta aisle. More than okay. I think she'd like that. They cooked together. Emma measured ingredients while Marcus handled the stove. They worked in sync, the kitchen small but sufficient, the apartment filled with the smell of garlic and tomatoes. Over dinner, Emma talked about her plans for her next science project. I'm thinking earthquakes, or maybe volcanoes, something with plate tectonics. That's ambitious. Ms. Rodriguez says I should always challenge myself. Plus, I want to get first place next time. Second place wasn't good enough. Second place was great, but first place would be better. That's called growth mindset. Marcus grinned. Okay then, plate tectonics it is. We'll start researching next week. After dinner, they watched a movie. Some animated thing about dragons and Vikings that Emma had seen 17 times but never got tired of. Marcus mostly watched her watching it, seeing her face light up at her favorite parts, hearing her quote lines she'd memorized. This was it. This was the life he'd chosen. Not boardrooms and six-figure consulting fees and corner offices with views. Just this. Spaghetti dinners and library trips and animated movies on Saturday nights. And it was enough. More than enough. His phone buzzed during the credits. Catherine. Lunch lasted 3 hours. 3 hours. We talked about school and soccer and his friends and the girl he likes. Her name is Sophie, and she's in his math class and he thinks she's really smart. I took notes, actual notes on my phone, so I wouldn't forget. That's great, Catherine, really great. We're having dinner tomorrow night, too. He actually asked if I wanted to get dinner tomorrow. I think I might cry again. Happy tears are allowed. I'm blocking off every Friday afternoon for him. No meetings, no calls, no email, just Tyler time. Starting next week. Good, stick to it, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I will, I promise. Marcus, I can't thank you enough. You gave me my son back. You did that yourself. I just reminded you he was there waiting. A pause. How's Emma? How was her Saturday? Marcus looked at his daughter now, reading Harry Potter on the couch legs tucked under her, completely absorbed. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Good. You both deserve that. Listen, I'll let you go. Family time is sacred. But Marcus, I'm serious about the consulting work. I need you. The company needs you, but on your terms, always on your terms. I know, thank you. They said goodbye. Marcus joined Emma on the couch, pulled her close. You ready for bed soon? Can we read first? Always. They read 2 more chapters. Emma fell asleep halfway through the second one, but Marcus kept reading anyway, his voice soft in the quiet apartment. He carried her to bed, tucked her in with the care he brought to everything involving his daughter. Kissed her forehead. Left the door cracked. Back in the living room, Marcus stood by the window looking out at Capitol Hill, the streetlights coming on, the city settling into Saturday night. Somewhere out there, Catherine was with Tyler, rebuilding what she'd almost lost. Somewhere people were making choices about what mattered. His phone buzzed one last time. A text from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Kane, this is Tyler Sterling. My mom gave me your number. She said you helped her remember to be a better mom. So thank you. She was really happy today. I haven't seen her that happy in a long time. Anyway, thanks. Marcus saved the number typed back. You're welcome, Tyler. Your mom loves you very much. She just forgot how to show it for a while. Give her a chance. She's trying. I will. Thanks again. Marcus set down his phone. Felt something tight in his chest release completely. This was why he'd said yes to Catherine. Not for the money or the work, or even to use skills he'd thought were retired. He'd said yes because someone needed help and he could give it. Because showing up for people mattered. Because small choices rippled outward in ways you couldn't predict. He thought about the past 3 years. The warehouse job, the early mornings and late nights, the careful budgeting and the constant worry, the loneliness of being a single parent, and the joy of watching Emma grow. He thought about Grace, about the life they'd planned together and the life he'd built without her. Both were real. Both mattered. One didn't erase the other. He pulled out his laptop one final time, opened a new document. Started writing notes for Monday's consulting work. The part of his brain that solved complex problems hummed to life, grateful to be used again. But this time it was different. This time he had boundaries. This time work fit around Emma instead of the other way around. This time he knew what mattered and what didn't. At 10:47 p.m. he closed the laptop, checked on Emma one more time. She'd kicked off her covers the way she always did. He pulled them back up, kissed her forehead again. "Love you, baby girl, more than all the stars in your science project." She mumbled something in her sleep, smiled without waking. Marcus went to his room, looked at the photo on his nightstand. Grace, Emma, him, before. "We're okay," he whispered to it. "We're going to be okay." He turned off the light, climbed into bed. Outside, Denver hummed with the Saturday night energy. Inside, everything was quiet, safe, home. Tomorrow, he'd start his new consulting job. Tomorrow, Catherine would have dinner with Tyler. Tomorrow, the world would keep turning, and they'd all keep showing up for the things that mattered. But tonight, there was just this. Just the sound of Emma breathing in the next room. Just the knowledge that he'd kept every promise he'd made. Just the peace that came from choosing right, even when choosing right meant giving up everything else. Marcus closed his eyes, let himself drift toward sleep. His last thought was the same one he'd had every night for 3 years. Thank you for Emma. Thank you for this chance. Thank you for showing me what actually matters. And somewhere in whatever place Grace existed now, he imagined her smiling, proud of who he'd become, proud of the father he'd chosen to be, proud of the life he'd built from the wreckage of theirs. In the morning, there would be pancakes and planning and the beautiful, ordinary work of being a parent. But tonight there was just gratitude, and that Marcus thought as sleep finally took him was more than enough. It was everything. So, what did you think? Did Marcus's choice resonate with you? Have you ever had to choose between career and family? Drop a comment below and tell me your story. I love hearing how these stories land with different people. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you about what really matters, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe so you don't miss future stories. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone who's struggling with the same choice Marcus faced. Maybe someone who needs a reminder that showing up is the most important thing we can do. Because here's the thing, we all have our own versions of this choice. Maybe it's not warehouse work versus consulting. Maybe it's staying late at the office versus making it to your kids' game. Maybe it's the next promotion versus family dinner. Maybe it's being successful versus being present. But the choice is always the same. What matters more? What are you willing to sacrifice, and more importantly, what are you not willing to sacrifice? Marcus figured it out. Catherine's figuring it out. Maybe this story can help you figure it out too. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and remember, the best present is being present. See you in the next story.